على حاجته إلى مرجع يرجع إليه ممن هو خارج البشر وإطار البشرية.
So if we look at human beings with what they've been given in terms of all of their abilities and essential nature, if these are sound, people arrive at certain similar understandings. If you look, for instance, at Muslims, and many of the people in this room are Muslim, they have certain basic principles and understandings that they base their lives upon, and that makes sense to them based on their understanding. This is also true of other celestial dispensations like Christianity and Judaism. They have similar beliefs, and those beliefs ultimately become the reference by which they interpret certain aspects of existence. So whether that is sound or not, and the ability for us to use what we've been given in determining what we can and cannot do is based upon, first of all, the maturity of that understanding itself. What level of that understanding that we actually have. And also, it is based upon the soundness of one's internal state with that understanding. So there's an intellectual aspect to it, which is simply whether or not we have a sound or correct understanding. But there's also another aspect, which is the intentional aspect to the belief. What is the internal state of the person that has this belief? And that will determine whether or not the belief is working soundly or unsoundly for them.
الذين يعيشون صفاء الصلة بالطبيعة البكر، بالحياة التي لم تتعقد فيها منتجات صناعة الإنسان. وهنا ملاحظة: أكثر الناس تقدما في أكثر المجتمعات تقدما في منتجات الحضارة المادية يجد راحته إذا خرج إلى مكان ليس فيه أثر للإنسان. تراه يرتاح إذا ذهب إلى نزهة في غابات طبيعية لم تتدخل فيها أيدي البشر، يرتاح إذا ذهب إلى الصحراء، يرتاح إذا ذهب إلى البحر، يشعر براحة أكثر كلما اقترب من مكان لم تعبث به يد الإنسان. هذا شيء موجود في نفس من يعيش في أكثر مجتمعات ودول العالم تطورا وتقدما في نتاج الحضارة المادية. على ماذا يدل هذا الأمر؟ هذا يرتبط بصفاء الذهن الذي يعيشه من يرتبط بالطبيعة التي قل تدخل الإنسان فيها. لهذا لما قالوا لأحد البدو من الأعراب، قالوا له يكلمونه عن إثبات وجود الإله، فتكلم بديهة بغير حاجة إلى إعادة نظر وتفكير. قال: البعرة تدل على البعير، والأثر يدل على المسير، فسماء ذات أبراج وأرض ذات فجاج ألا تدل على صانع خالق قدير.
So the Sheikh said that one of the interesting aspects of human beings is that when human beings are connected to virginal nature, they have certain experiences based upon that connection. And people that are still living in these natural states often share common characteristics. But another interesting aspect of this is that if you go to civilizations that have reached very high levels of progress and very high levels of culture and of human artifice, you will find that those very people that live in the midst of this extraordinary civilization and technology and progress find that their most tranquil periods of time are times spent completely away from all of that human artifice. And when they find themselves in areas like the desert or like forests or at the ocean, where there's almost no trace of human manipulation of the world, they find a type of tranquility and a peace that they don't find in the midst of all of the hustle and bustle of what they have created. And these people who live in these virginal areas of the world, you will often find that they have a very clear and distinct understanding of the world that is almost arrived at intuitively without any effort. An example of that, the Sheikh said, is that a Bedouin was once asked how he understood the existence of God. And the Bedouin said that he was a Aboriginal person, and traces were part of his understanding. So he said, if I see camel dung, I know a camel has passed by. If I see donkey dung, I know a donkey's passed by. If I see the traces of a human, I know a human's been here. So this celestial dome with all of its constellations, this earth with all of its diversity and pathways, and this ocean containing the majestic waves, don't all of these indicate a creator who's capable and knowing and all-powerful?
نحن نعيش اليوم سرعة دوران عجلة بناء الإنسان لشؤون على شؤون من نتائج ما يراه من منجزات يده، إلى الحد الذي وصل فيه الإنسان إلى رتبة يصح أن نسميها انحطاطا وسقوطا وهويا، صار يخسر كل شيء في إنسانيته وهو لا يشعر، وصار يحطم كل شيء يحيط به وهو أيضا لا يشعر، في سبيل الوصول إلى ماذا؟ إذا تأمل في النهاية لا شيء.
So if we look at the state of our present day humanity in these technologically advanced environments, what we're witnessing is an increasingly a wheel of human endeavor that is increasingly speeding up to the point where we're moving at a pace where it becomes out of our control. And so we begin to actually destroy the environment around us. With all of this extraordinary technological advancement and progress, we begin to watch our own humanity literally being taken away from us. We begin to see devastation and social disintegration before our very eyes, and yet many of us do not even notice that it's happening. Many of us are unaware that these very things are taking place before our very eyes, and we are losing that very thing that makes us human.
الإنسان خليفة الله في الأرض. إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. خليفة الإنسان خليفة من سبقه من المخلوقات كالجن من حيث أنه خلفهم في الأرض، لكنه خليفة الله من حيث أن الله هو الذي استخلفه. إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة.
The human being is a vicegerent on the earth. This is the human purpose. According to the Quran, God said to His creation, I am placing in the earth a vicegerent. And that vicegerent is the human being. On the one hand, the khilafah or vicegerency indicates that this is a replacement for what was before it. So each generation replaces the generation that went before it, and also the humanity was a replacement for a previous sapiential group of beings here known as the jinn or the sprite world. And this khilafah that we have been given is from God. This is our purpose.
بالمعنى الآخر الذي يفهمه من لا يؤمن بوجود الإله الحق عز وجل، الإنسان متصرف في هذا الوجود.
Another explanation of this very meaning for those who might not have some sort of revelatory reference to understand these things, we would simply say human beings have been put here to act and to work in the world with a type of volition that does not exist in other creatures.
الإنسان الخليفة يشعر أن العالم الذي يحيط به أمانة في عنقه، فلهذا هو يتعامل معه على أساس أنه يأخذ منه حاجته، ما يحتاجه ليعيش ليؤدي مهمته في الحياة، مع مراعاة الحفاظ على الأمانة التي تحيط به. لكن الإنسان الذي لا يعيش معنى الخلافة في الأرض، يعيش معنى أنه سيد العالم فحسب، يخرج عن حدود أخذ حاجته من العالم إلى مرحلة سماها الله بالترف المترفين. الترف هذا أن يعيش الإنسان ليتمتع فقط للمتعة، لا لتكون المتعة وسيلة لتجديد نشاطه وهمته للقيام بمهمة، تصبح الوسيلة غاية عند الإنسان. لهذا لا نستغرب إذا رأيناه يحطم ما يحيط به وفي النهاية يحطم نفسه.
So if we look at this idea of the ability to act in the world, if on the one hand you have an understanding that it's purposeful and that you have this vicegerency, you see your ability in the world as a sacred trust. And you begin to work in the world, and you take your needs from the world because this is part of the purpose, but at the same time you're aware of this trust that you have with the world that prevents you from exploiting the world, from taking more than you actually need, from depriving others through your own greed. On the other hand, if you have this view of the world that you are simply the master of creation and you can do as you please, and you begin to see yourself as independent without any responsibility, then these type of people will begin to view life as simply a means for enjoying themselves, for attaining what they want of power or whatever other object of desire, without any reverence or understanding of the trust. And these very people will begin to actually destroy the very thing that is sustaining them and others, and they will destroy it because they have taken as a means, they have taken it as an end, as opposed to seeing it as a means to another objective.
عندنا في الشريعة في تعامل الإنسان من منطلق الخلافة، الإنسان حريص على كل شيء يحيط به، حتى على الأرض التي يطأها، حتى على الماء الذي يشرب منه أو يغتسل. يقول الفقهاء عندنا نقلا عن السنة أنه يكره للمتوضئ الإسراف في صب الماء في الوضوء ولو توضأ على شط البحر أو النهر. يقول ابن رسلان مكروهه في الوضوء حيث أسرف ولو من البحر الكبير اغترف، أي ولو اغترف من البحر ليتوضأ يكره له أن يسرف. لما؟ لأن الإسراف تعد على معنى الأمانة في الاستخلاف في الأرض في التعامل مع الخلق الذي خلقه الله فيما يحيط بنا.
So if you look at this nature of human interaction with the creation that surrounds humanity, in our tradition we have an understanding that it should not be with extravagance, that we should be utilizing what we need without going or transgressing any boundaries. An example of this, even within the Islamic juristic tradition, is the idea of when we do ritual purification with water. There's an understanding that water conservation is actually part of the devotional practice. And so one of the Shafi'i scholars said that it is makruh or reprehensible to waste water when one is using it for devotional practices or otherwise, even if one was taking it from a vast ocean. That just the mere fact that it is israf, that it is unnecessary usage, even if there was plenty to go around, is still reprehensible because of the very act of wasting something that one does not need to waste.
بينما العالم اليوم لما تعامل مع هذا الأمر الماء بغير إحساس بالخلافة صار مسرفا في استخدام الماء إلى حد العبث، ثم واجهته مشكلة هذا الإسراف فأخذ يفكر كيف يتخلص من الماء الذي يصرف الذي قد تلوث بسوء استخدامه، فيبحث أين يذهب به، فإما يضعه في الأرض فيلوث الأرض بعد ذلك لتعود بالضرر عليه في تلويث المياه الجوفية، أو يطلقه في البحر ليلوث البحر ويؤذي المخلوقات الموجودة في البحر بعد ذلك، فهو يعيش اضطراب لنتيجة وهي أنه تصرف بغير استشعار لمعنى الخلافة في هذه الأرض.
So if we look at for instance, the modern world and the extraordinary waste of this extraordinary resource called water, if we look at what modern man has done with this resource, because of the lack of feeling this sacred trust with the natural resources of the world, he begins to not only waste the water, but actually to pollute the very water that's sustaining him. So he takes the effects of his production and dumps them in the earth and begins to pollute the water table. So when the water comes up and they want to benefit from it, they start getting sick from this water because of what they've done to themselves. Or, on the other hand, if they dump it in the ocean without reflecting on the impact that it has there, then they harm all of these sea creatures that have done nothing wrong to acquire this harm. So human beings begin to actually destroy the very thing that's sustaining them because they have no sense of this trust that has been given them with these resources.
ثم يشتكي الإنسان بعد ذلك نتاج عبثه في التعامل مع الكون الذي يحيط به، فتقابل الإنسان مشكلة المياه التي يعدونها اليوم من أكبر مشكلات العالم، مع أن الماء ليس بالانعدام الذي يترتب عليه شأن الإشكال لولا سوء تصرف الإنسان. أفرأيتم الماء الذي تشربون أأنتم أنزلتموه من المزن أم نحن المنزلون لو نشاء جعلناه أجاجا. هذا المعنى في استشعار الإنسان لفقد الماء أساسه سوء تصرف الإنسان. أيضا شعور الإنسان بخطر وأمراض تتفشى في مجتمعه لا يكاد يسيطر عليها، كلما أخذ بزمام مرض وأحاط به تفشى المرض الثاني. يشتكي الناس المأكولات التي تأتي من البحر في كثير من المناطق في العالم أصبحت ملوثة، لا يستطيع الإنسان التصرف الأكل وهو آمن من نتاجها. الآبار اليوم التي تحفر يستخرج الناس كثيرا من المياه من كثير من الآبار وقد تلوثت بسوء تصرف الإنسان، بل لقد لوثنا حتى الماء الذي يأتي من السماء، فصار في بعض المناطق تنزل الأمطار الكيماوية من آثار سوء تصرف الإنسان في الأرض. ومن المتضرر بعد ذلك في الدنيا قبل الآخرة؟ الإنسان.
So if we look at this extraordinary state of humans, after they do all of this, all of these terrible things, they actually, to add insult to injury, they start complaining about the situation. And they begin to complain about the very thing that they've brought about. So they complain about the fact that things are getting polluted. They complain about the state of the water. They complain about their food. If you look, for instance, at the food now, this food that's being produced, it begins to harm people, and then the people complain about it. It's because they've transgressed these boundaries. If you look, for instance, at the many places now on the earth, people who actually traditionally gain their sustenance from the oceans are now actually being harmed by the very food that they're consuming. People no longer feel safe in eating many of the things that the earth produces, not because anything was wrong in the first place, but because of what humans have done to themselves, what humans have done to the earth itself. And so they begin to live the results of their own poor use of all of these extraordinary gifts that have been given to them, and they begin to complain about it. The Quran asks them a question: have you not considered well the water that you drink? We have sent it down from rain-filled clouds, and had we wanted, we would have made this water, the royal we, had we wanted, we would have made this water bitter for you, difficult for you to actually drink. Don't you show gratitude? Don't you reflect on these things? So the Quran is asking us to contemplate the fact that our water is in this state of purity that God has sent it, and had God willed, He could have made it terrible to drink. And so this is in order that we actually begin to feel a sense of gratitude for what we've been given. And this sense of gratitude will engender in turn a sense of trust that we have to preserve, that we have a trust with these things that we've been given. And if we lose sight of that trust and begin to squander these things, then we suffer the consequences of the evil of our own hands.
هذا مثل بسيط لا يتسع الوقت لاستقصاء جوانب الحياة. لو تأمل كل منكم بعد ذلك بمفرده مشكلة التلوث النووي، مشكلة النفايات الموجودة في الأرض، مشكلة النفايات الناتجة عن وسائل المواصلات التي استحدثها الإنسان، المشاكل التي ترى، جنون البقر الذي أصله جنون البشر، الاستقصاء. لو تأملنا جميع المشاكل المعضلة في هذا العالم لوجدنا أنها نتاج لصنع الإنسان، وإذا غصنا بتأمل وتفكر وتدبر لوجدنا أن ذلك نتاج لشطط الإنسان، لشطحة الإنسان في رغبته لمجرد التلذذ والتنعم، مجرد التمتع، مجرد الاستتباع، الاستجابة لكل ما تطلبه النفس. تريد نفسي كذا أفعل، تريد نفسي كذا أفعل، حتى جاوز ذلك إلى عبادات الناس اليوم يشتكون عندنا في مكة في الحج من عدم اتساع منى للناس. ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما يقول إن منى كرحم المرأة، كلما كبر الطفل اتسعت. هذا المعنى، أي أنه مهما ورد أناس ستتسع لهم. الواقع يقول أنها قسمت بالخيم، ما وسعت الناس. ما الاختلال الذي حصل؟ لو تأملنا قليلا، الإنسان رغبته في التمتع الزائد. عندما يستأجر أحد الأثرياء 4 أو 5 خيام، خيمة ينام فيها وحده، وخيمة لملابسه، وخيمة لاستقبال ضيوفه، وخيمة لزوجته، وخيمة لساعة العصر، وخيمة للصباح، وخيمة لتليفوناته واتصالاته، أخذ مكان ل100 نفر وهو نفر واحد لأنه يستطيع أن يدفع. فكل اختلال يعيشه الإنسان اليوم ليس سببه اختلال في العالم، لكن اختلال في تصرف الإنسان.
So the Sheikh said that if this is only one small example that I've given you, if you disperse tonight and go and begin to reflect, you can reflect on many of these problems, on the problem of nuclear waste, on the problem of all of the byproducts of our industries, the poisonous byproducts that what they call toxic waste matters, and reflect on the fact that these things are being dumped and being put into places. If we look at all of the problems that they're creating, and even like mad cow's disease, again, the human hand is evident in all of these problems. We cannot see these problems coming from nature, but rather they're coming from the extravagances of human beings, from the activities of human beings that are done with a desire to acquire more than they need, with a desire to get something through other means than natural means. And all of these things, in the end, again, return to the human being. If we look at what we've been given, the fact is not only is there more than enough, but the world will always increase us as our needs, if their true needs, increase. So for instance, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said about a place near Mecca where a lot of the pilgrims go, that this place is like a womb, that it will actually become more expansive as the janeen or the embryo becomes bigger. And this is true also for those who go on pilgrimage for the sake of God. They will find the space that they need because the Creator is a Creator that has facilitated for human beings what they need. On the other hand, if human beings, because of their power, because of their wealth, because of their abilities, begin to take more than they need. So a man takes one domicile for himself, another for his clothes, another for his wife, another for his a place where he speaks on the telephone, another for his guests, another for this and for that, until he's got so many houses that it actually is enough for 100 people, and yet he's only one person. And so he's consumed all of this far beyond what he actually needs because of extravagance within his own self and because of a power to the detriment of others. So whenever we find this extravagance, it's always to the detriment of others, but ultimately to our own selves. And the problem again returns